I didn't find the second phone in his pocket. I found it wedged between a fast food receipt and a half-empty bottle of peppermint gum, down in the dark mouth of the driver's side door, like it had been tucked there on purpose, then forgotten in a hurry. The car was still warm from his commute, that trapped heat that smells faintly like steering wheel plastic and stale cologne. Outside, our neighborhood was quiet in that late afternoon way. Mailboxes shut, sprinklers ticking, someone's distant lawnmower fading like a tired song. Inside the car, the silence felt heavier than it should have. I remember holding the phone in my palm, turning it over once, twice, like maybe the back would explain itself. It was newer than his main phone. Sleeker. No case. No scratches. A clean, black rectangle with no personality, like a stranger trying to blend in. For a second, I told myself it belonged to someone else. Maybe one of the guys at work. Maybe he gave a coworker a ride. Maybe it had slipped under a seat and rolled. But then I pressed the side button and the screen lit up with a wallpaper I knew. A photo of a sunset, orange fading into purple, taken from a beach boardwalk. The same exact kind of picture my husband, Marcus, loved to take whenever we traveled. He'd stand still, chin tipped up, like the sky owed him something, and he'd snap the photo as if he could trap peace in a frame. My throat tightened, because I recognized that boardwalk. We'd been there 2 summers ago for our anniversary. And yet, something about the angle felt wrong. Like it was the same place, but from a slightly different life. I sat there for another full minute, the phone glowing against my fingers, my heart beating too loud for the small space. I stared at the lock screen that didn't show a name, didn't show a family photo, didn't show our son, didn't show our dog. Just that sunset. Just that quiet lie. When I finally stepped out of the car, the evening air hit my face cool and damp. I could hear my own front door through the porch window, our boy laughing at whatever cartoon was playing, the bright, careless kind of laughter kids give away like it's unlimited. I tucked the phone into my purse like I was hiding a blade. Then I walked into my house wearing my normal face. That was the first betrayal. Not the phone. Not even what was inside it. But the way I swallowed my fear so my family wouldn't notice. Because I still believed right then that if I stayed calm enough, life would rearrange itself back into something safe. It didn't. Before that day, my life wasn't perfect, but it was steady. I'm not one of those women who'll tell you I had a fairy tale marriage and then act shocked when it cracks. Marcus and I had our rough patches, money arguments, long work days, the little resentments that grow like weeds if you don't pull them early. But we had a rhythm. We'd been married 11 years. We lived in a modest 2-story with beige siding that always needed power washing. We had one child, Eli, 9 years old, curious and loud and always leaving socks in places socks don't belong. We had a golden retriever named June who thought every visitor came specifically to adore her. And we had routines. Marcus kissed me on the forehead when he left for work. Even on mornings we were annoyed with each other. He took his coffee black, I took mine with too much cream. On Fridays, we ordered takeout and pretended we weren't tired. On Sundays, I meal prepped while he helped by tasting things and stealing pieces of chicken from the counter. He worked in logistics, warehouse contracts, shipping schedules, things I never fully understood but nodded at anyway. I worked part-time at a dental office, mostly answering phones and filing insurance claims. Nothing glamorous. But it gave me independence, and it gave us a little breathing room. Marcus liked to call me the calm one. He'd say it like a compliment, like I was some kind of soft landing he could come home to after a day of chaos. And I guess I was. I kept track of dentist appointments, school projects, bills. I knew which cereal Eli would eat without complaining, and which one would sit untouched until the milk turned sad. I knew my husband's habits too. Or at least I thought I did. Marcus always placed his keys in the same ceramic bowl by the door. He always put his phone screen down on the kitchen counter, like he didn't want it to distract him. He always hummed when he grilled, off-key and confident. And he always made a show of being transparent. If you ever want to look at my phone, look at it, he'd say sometimes, usually after a story on the news about some cheating scandal. I got nothing to hide. I didn't take him up on it. Not because I was afraid of what I'd find, but because trust felt like something you protect by not testing it every day. That's the thing about trust. You don't notice it until it starts disappearing. The first real shift wasn't dramatic. It was small and annoying. Marcus started coming home later. Not every day. Just enough to make me adjust dinner. Enough to make Eli ask, "Is Dad working again?" Enough to make June's tail slow down from happy wag to confused thump. At first, Marcus had reasons. Inventory's a mess. New supervisors breathing down my neck. Traffic was a parking lot. And those reasons made sense in the way excuses always do, smooth and plausible, like stones you can step on to avoid looking down into the water. Then he started guarding his time. He'd take calls outside, stepping onto the back porch like the air was better out there. I'd hear his voice through the screen door, low, gentle, almost careful. Not angry, not stressed. Careful like someone handling glass. One night I asked, "Who was that?" He didn't even blink. "Just Darren. You know, work stuff." But Darren's name didn't sound like that. Darren, the real Darren, was loud and crude and always calling Marcus during football games to complain about the refs. This voice Marcus used on the porch wasn't for Darren. It was softer. Like he was trying not to wake someone. Or like he didn't want me to hear how he sounded when he wasn't talking to me. Another shift. His appearance. Marcus began shaving more often. He bought a new cologne, something crisp and expensive. I noticed it when he hugged Eli goodnight, the scent lingering in the hallway after he walked away. "New cologne?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light. He smiled. "Got it on sale. Thought I'd switch it up." I nodded. I even smiled back. But my stomach didn't smile. Because I knew my husband. Marcus didn't switch it up. He wore the same brand of deodorant for years until I replaced it myself. The day I found the second phone, I wasn't snooping. I was looking for the garage clicker. Marcus's car was blocking the shelves, and the clicker had disappeared again, probably buried under the usual mess. Grocery bags, Eli's old soccer ball, a jacket Marcus swore he'd donate. I opened the driver's side door to reach across, and that's when I saw it down in the door pocket, just a corner at first, like it wanted to be overlooked. When I picked it up, the screen lit, and that sunset wallpaper stared back at me, familiar and unfamiliar all at once. I didn't confront him right away. Not because I was scared of him. Because I was scared of myself. Scared of what I'd do if he lied. Scared of what I'd do if he didn't. That evening, Marcus came home at 7:42 p.m. He walked in with a tired smile and a plastic bag of Eli's favorite cookies, like a peace offering. "Sorry I'm late," he said, kissing my cheek. His lips were warm. His cologne was fresh. And his eyes didn't flinch. I watched him hang his keys in the ceramic bowl. I watched him wash his hands. I watched him crouch to scratch June behind the ears. And all the while, the second phone sat in my purse upstairs like a heartbeat that wasn't mine. At dinner, he talked about work, inventory, supervisor, traffic. He laughed at Eli's joke. He asked me about my day. And I answered him like a woman who didn't have a storm hidden in her handbag. But later, when the house went quiet and Eli was asleep, I sat at the edge of our bed and pulled the phone out again. The screen was dark. I pressed the button and the lock screen lit up. Sunset. Boardwalk. Peace. And beneath it, in small text, a notification slid across. "Good night, my husband, red heart." My fingers went cold. My breath stopped halfway. Because that notification wasn't from me. And it wasn't a joke. It was a claim. A soft, affectionate claim that landed in my lap like a stone. I stared at it until the screen dimmed again. Then I pressed the button once more. And this time, I didn't put the phone away. I set it on my bedside table, right next to my wedding ring dish. And I just sat there in the dark, listening to Marcus's steady breathing beside me, while my whole world quietly started to split. I didn't sleep that night. Marcus lay beside me, breathing in that slow, even rhythm that used to calm me. Now it felt like mockery, proof that he could rest peacefully while my mind ran itself raw. The phone stayed on the nightstand. I didn't touch it again. Not yet. Because some truths, you don't rush them. You let them come to you, so you can never say you imagined them. Morning arrived the way it always did, soft gray light through the blinds, June thumping her tail against the bed, Eli calling from the bathroom that he couldn't find his blue toothbrush. Marcus stretched, yawned, and kissed my shoulder. Morning, come when? The words landed wrong. I smiled anyway. I always smiled. At breakfast, he scrolled through his phone, his usual one, laughing at a video he showed Eli. Pancakes sizzled on the griddle. Syrup stuck to my fingers. Everything looked normal enough to fool a stranger. But I wasn't a stranger. I watched his hands. The same hands that held mine during my father's funeral. The same hands that signed our mortgage papers. The same hands that now apparently typed "Good night, my husband red heart" to another woman. After Marcus left for work, I didn't clean up right away. I sat at the kitchen table until the pancakes went cold and Eli's cartoon theme song looped for the third time. Then I picked up the second phone. I tried the obvious first, Marcus's birthday. Locked. Our anniversary. Locked. Eli's birthday. Locked. My own birthday. Locked. My chest tightened. Not because I couldn't get in, but because he hadn't used me for the lock. I flipped the phone over, noticing something I hadn't before, a faint scratch near the bottom corner, like it had been dropped once and quickly hidden. A life lived carefully, but not perfectly. I took a breath and tried a different approach. I thought about the things Marcus repeated without thinking. The habits, the comforts, the words that slipped out when he was tired. I typed the name of the beach town where we'd taken that anniversary trip. The phone unlocked. Just like that. The screen bloomed open, bright and innocent, as if it had been waiting for me all along. My heart hammered so hard I had to set the phone down for a moment, pressing my palm flat against the table until the dizziness passed. When I picked it up again, the home screen was neat. Too neat. No clutter. No games. No random apps. Just messaging, email, photos, banking. A curated life. The Messages app opened last. And there she was, pinned at the top. Lena Redheart. My name isn't Lena. The most recent message was from the night before. Lena, did you get home safe? Marcus, yeah. Miss you already. Lena, same. Sometimes I hate how far your work keeps you. Marcus, one day at a time, baby. Worth it for us. I read it twice, then a third time. Not because I didn't understand the words, but because my brain kept rejecting them, like a body refusing a transplant. I scrolled. Good mornings. Lunch check-ins. Photos of coffee cups, sunsets, a messy desk I didn't recognize. And then something that made my stomach drop all the way to the floor. A photo. Marcus, standing in front of a Christmas tree I had never seen, wearing the gray sweater I'd bought him 3 years ago. His arm was wrapped around a woman with dark hair and a wide smile. She leaned into him easily, comfortably, like she belonged there. The caption beneath the photo read, "Our first Christmas as husband and wife red heart." I couldn't hear anything for a moment. The house went silent in that deep, underwater way. Even Eli's cartoon faded into nothing. Husband and wife. I zoomed in on the photo with shaking fingers. There it was. A wedding band. The same style as mine. On his hand. On her hand. My mouth tasted metallic. I swallowed hard, forcing air into my lungs. This wasn't an affair. This was architecture. I scrolled further, my hands moving now with a strange calm, like my body had decided panic would be wasted energy. There were bank notifications, shared accounts, rent payments, utility bills, addresses. 2 addresses. One was ours. The other was an apartment 40 minutes away, in a town Marcus claimed he only passed through for work. There were vacation photos. The beach boardwalk again, but this time, I saw her reflection in a shop window. The same sunset. The same angle. The same life. Duplicated. My chest ached, not just from betrayal, but from the sheer effort it must have taken. The planning. The lies layered so carefully they became routine. And then it hit me. She didn't know. Not really. No woman who knows she's the other takes Christmas photos like that. No mistress captions husband and wife with a heart like it's sacred. She believed him. Just like I had. I scrolled back up to her contact name and opened her profile photo. She had kind eyes. Laugh lines. The face of someone who laughed easily and trusted deeply. Someone like me. I stared at her face longer than I should have. And then something inside me shifted. Not into rage. Into resolve. I didn't confront Marcus that day. Or the next. I watched him instead. I watched how he changed his tone depending on who he thought was listening. How he checked his watch more often. How he'd shower the moment he came home, like he needed to wash something off. At night, I memorized his breathing again, but now I listened for pauses. For restlessness. For the weight of guilt shifting beside me. I began taking notes. Dates. Times. Excuses. When he said inventory, I checked the warehouse website, no late shifts scheduled. When he said Darren, I noted Darren's social media posts from home, beer in hand. I felt like a detective in my own marriage, quietly collecting evidence of a life I wasn't invited to live. One afternoon, Marcus left his laptop open. He'd gone to the garage to take a call. I didn't rush. I didn't fumble. I walked over calmly, like a woman checking the weather. The browser history told a story the messages hadn't. Searches for engagement ring resizing. How to transfer utilities. Can you be legally married in 2 states? That last one made my hands go numb. Bigamy. There it was. A word I'd only heard in documentaries and crime shows. A word that sounded old and dusty and impossible. And yet, here it was. In my kitchen. On my husband's laptop. When Marcus came back inside, I was seated at the table, sipping cold coffee, his laptop closed and untouched. "Everything okay?" he asked. I met his eyes. "Fine," I said. "Just tired." He nodded, satisfied. And in that moment, I knew something important. Marcus didn't think I was capable of seeing him clearly. He thought my calm was blindness. And that miscalculation would cost him everything. That night, after he fell asleep, I picked up the second phone again. I opened the message thread with Lena. My finger hovered over the keyboard for a long time. Then I typed, "Hi, I think we need to talk." About Marcus. I stared at the message, my heart pounding. Then I hit send. The phone buzzed almost immediately. "Lena, who is this?" I closed my eyes, took a breath, and typed the truth. "Me, I'm his wife." On the other side of town, in another bed, another woman was about to wake up inside the same nightmare. And neither of us would ever be the same again. Lena didn't reply right away. Minutes passed. Then more. The phone stayed quiet on my nightstand, its screen dark, like it was holding its breath with me. Marcus snored softly beside me, one arm flung over my pillow the way he always slept, claiming space without meaning to. I watched his face in the low light, the familiar slope of his nose, the faint scar near his eyebrow from a college basketball game. I wondered how many versions of this face existed now. How many women had memorized it the way I had. The phone buzzed. I flinched, even though I'd been waiting for it. "Lena, I think you have the wrong person." That made sense. If someone texted me those words a week ago, I would have said the same thing. Denial is the first instinct. It's a reflex, like pulling your hand back from a hot stove. I typed slowly. "Me, I wish I did." I found his second phone. "I have photos. Messages. Bank records." Another pause. Longer this time. I imagined her sitting somewhere unfamiliar to me, maybe on a couch that still smelled like Marcus's cologne, maybe in a bedroom with different curtains, different photos on the wall. I imagined her rereading my message, her heart starting to beat too fast, the way mine had. Finally, the phone buzzed again. "Lena, he said he was divorced." There it was. Not "he's married." Not "you're lying." But the soft, cracking admission that she'd been given a story and believed it. I felt something heavy settle in my chest. Not anger at her. Not jealousy. Grief. Me, he isn't. We've been married 11 years. We have a son. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. "Lena, that's not possible." I could almost hear her voice, tight, controlled, trying to keep panic from spilling over. I didn't argue. I sent proof instead. A photo of Marcus asleep in our bed, taken just then, his arms still draped over my pillow. The digital clock on the nightstand visible in the frame. The family photo on the dresser behind him, me, Marcus, and Eli at last year's school open house. The typing dots vanished. A full minute passed. Then 2. When her reply came, it was only 3 words. Lena, oh my God. I closed my eyes. On my side of the bed, I was silent. On hers, I imagined a hand flying to her mouth, a sharp intake of breath, the world tilting sideways in that unmistakable way. Lena, we're married. My heart lurched. Me, I know. Lena, 2 years. Courthouse wedding. He said it was simpler. Less drama. Courthouse. Simple. I swallowed hard. Me, where? She sent the city name. A different state. Different laws. Different paperwork. Same man. My fingers shook as I typed. Me, did you ever meet his family? Another pause. Lena, he said they were toxic. That they didn't support him. That it was better to keep distance. Of course he did. Marcus had always been good at rewriting people into villains when it suited him. Lena, I never questioned it. I thought I was respecting his boundaries. I stared at the ceiling, feeling the weight of how carefully he'd crafted this. He hadn't just lied. He'd isolated us from each other, wrapped his deceptions in language that sounded healthy and reasonable. Me, did he ever mention a son? The dots disappeared. Lena, no. That one hurt more than I expected. Not because he hadn't told her about me, but because he hadn't told her about Eli. Our son was 9 years old and already invisible in a world his father had built elsewhere. I felt something inside me harden, not into cruelty, but into clarity. This wasn't just betrayal. It was erasure. The next morning, Marcus kissed me goodbye like always. Inventory's going to be brutal today, he said, slipping on his watch. Might be late. I smiled at him. Okay, I said. Drive safe. He left without suspicion, without fear, without knowing that 2 women were now comparing notes behind his back, piecing together the same puzzle from opposite sides. As soon as the door closed, my phone buzzed. It was Lena. Lena, I took the day off work. I can't stop shaking. I typed back. Me, same. We moved slowly, carefully, 2 strangers bound by the same man's lies, trying not to break each other further. We shared timelines. He'd met her during a conference. He'd met me during a friend's birthday party years earlier. He'd proposed to her after a promotion. He'd renewed our vows privately after surviving a hard year. He took us to the same restaurant in different towns, ordered the same meal, told the same stories. Even his pet names were recycled. When Lena told me he called her Calm One, I had to put my phone down and walk away from the table. I stood at the sink, staring out at my backyard, June chasing a squirrel along the fence, blissfully unaware. That name had been mine. Or so I'd thought. By noon, there was no denying it. Marcus wasn't juggling 2 lives. He was cloning them. And we were both props. Lena suggested meeting. Not right away. Not impulsively. But soon. I need to see you, she wrote. I need to know you're real. I understood. I felt the same. We chose a neutral place, a small cafe halfway between our homes. Nothing fancy. Somewhere with big windows and the low hum of other people's conversations, like life insisting on going on. When I arrived, Lena was already there. I recognized her immediately from the photos. She stood when she saw me, uncertainty flickering across her face. She was taller than I expected. Her hair was pulled back in a simple clip. Her hands trembled slightly as she wrapped them around her coffee cup. For a moment, we just looked at each other. 2 women wearing the same shock in different ways. I'm sorry, she said softly, as if apologizing for existing. So am I replied. We sat. We talked. Not about Marcus at first, but about ourselves. Our jobs. Our families. The small, ordinary things that made us human beyond his lies. When we finally spoke his name, it felt heavy between us. I loved him, Lena said quietly. I nodded. Me too. There was no competition in the room. No raised voices. No insults. Just 2 women grieving the same man who never truly existed. By the time we left the cafe, we'd made a decision. Not out of revenge. Out of necessity. Marcus had lived comfortably in secrecy because no one had connected the dots. That was about to change. We didn't plan anything dramatic. No shouting matches. No surprise confrontations in parking lots. No public scenes meant to humiliate. That wasn't who either of us were. Instead, Lena and I did something quieter and far more dangerous to a man like Marcus. We compared paperwork. Sitting at my dining table that afternoon, the same table where Eli had done his homework for years, we spread documents out like evidence in a courtroom. Marriage certificates, bank statements, lease agreements, insurance policies. 2 wives, 2 homes, 2 lives, 1 man. Lena's hands shook as she laid out her marriage certificate, her name written carefully in ink. Marcus's signature clean and confident. I thought it was romantic, she said softly. How private it was. No guests. Just us. I swallowed. He told me he hated paperwork. She let out a bitter, humorless breath. He doesn't hate paperwork. He just hates being seen. There it was. The truth neither of us had wanted to say out loud. Marcus didn't stumble into this. He engineered it. We found the shared bank account next. The one Lena believed was just theirs. The same routing number appeared in a folder I hadn't checked in years, a savings account Marcus had insisted on managing himself. I felt sick. How long have you been paying into this? I asked. Since before the wedding, Lena said. He said it was for our future. A house. Kids, maybe. Kids. My throat tightened. He told me the same thing, I said. Different words. Same promise. The silence that followed wasn't angry. It was stunned. Like standing in the aftermath of a storm and realizing the damage is structural. By evening, the table was covered in proof. By night, we had a plan. Not to hurt him. To stop him. Marcus came home late again. This time, I was ready. Dinner was still warm. Eli was in his room, headphones on, lost in a game. June lay by the door, tail thumping when Marcus walked in. Hey, Marcus said casually. Sorry. Long day. I smiled. I know. He paused for just a fraction of a second. Not enough for anyone else to notice. But I did. He showered. Changed. Sat down at the table like nothing had shifted. I watched him eat. Watched him relax. Watched him believe he was still invisible. After Eli went to bed, I cleared the dishes slowly, deliberately. I didn't rush the moment. I wanted him comfortable. When I finally sat across from him, I folded my hands. Marcus, I said calmly, we need to talk. He leaned back in his chair, exhaling. Can it wait? I'm exhausted. No, I said. It can't. Something in my voice must have changed, because he straightened. Okay, he said cautiously. What's wrong? I reached into my purse and placed the second phone on the table between us. The sound it made, soft plastic against wood, was barely audible. But it echoed. Marcus stared at it. Then at me. Then back at the phone. For a heartbeat, he didn't speak. What's that? He asked finally. I tilted my head. You tell me. His jaw tightened. I don't know, he said. Probably someone left it in my car. I nodded slowly. Then I unlocked it. The screen lit up. The sunset wallpaper bloomed to life. Marcus's face drained of color. I found it in your door pocket, I said evenly. I unlocked it using the name of the beach town we visited on our anniversary. Silence. I tapped the screen again and slid it toward him. The message thread with Lena was still open. He didn't pick up the phone. Instead, he looked at me with something close to desperation. This isn't what you think, he said. I laughed. Not loudly. Just once. Soft and tired. It's exactly what I think, I replied. You're married to her. No, he said too quickly. I mean, yes, but... My calm snapped into something sharp. Yes, but what? He ran a hand through his hair, pacing now. It's complicated. No, I said. It's illegal. That stopped him. I stood, gathering the papers I'd prepared earlier and placing them on the table one by one. Our marriage certificate. Your joint account. The apartment lease in her name. Your search history. His eyes darted across the documents like trapped animals. You went through my things, he said weakly. You built a second life, I replied. We're not talking about privacy anymore. His shoulders slumped. "I never meant to hurt you," he whispered. That was the moment I lost whatever softness I had left for him. "You didn't mean to get caught," I said. "There's a difference." He tried to explain. He talked about pressure, about expectations, about how he'd felt different versions of himself with each of us. As if we were costumes. As if our lives were stages. I listened. Not because I believed him, but because I wanted to remember this moment clearly. When he finally ran out of words, I said one sentence. "She knows." His head snapped up. "She knows what?" "She knows everything," I said. "I met her today." The room went still. Marcus's mouth opened, closed. Then he sat down heavily, as if his body had finally accepted the truth before his mind could. "You talked to her?" he whispered. "Yes." "You had no right." "I had every right," I said. "You took my reality. I took it back." He buried his face in his hands. For the first time since I'd known him, Marcus looked small. "I can fix this," he said. "I'll end it. I swear." I shook my head. "You already ended it," I replied. "You just didn't know it yet." The consequences didn't arrive all at once. They came like waves. First, Lena filed for an annulment. Then she contacted a lawyer. Then I did the same. The legal system moved slowly, but it moved. Bigamy wasn't a dramatic headline in our town. It was a quiet, devastating fact. Marcus was suspended from work when the investigation reached his employer. Apparently, lying so thoroughly had consequences beyond marriage. His parents found out next. Then his siblings. Then the people he'd spent years charming. Not because we screamed it from rooftops, but because truth doesn't stay hidden when it finally breathes. Marcus moved out. Not in a rage. Not in a dramatic exit. Just boxes. Silence. Avoided eye contact. Eli asked questions I answered gently and honestly. Dad made some very serious mistakes, I told him. And he has to fix them. Does he still love us? Eli asked. I pulled him close. I don't know, I said truthfully. But I love you enough for both of us. Lena and I stayed in touch. Not constantly, but enough. Enough to remind each other that we were real. That we hadn't imagined it. We didn't become best friends. We became something quieter. Allies. Survivors. Two women who refused to let a man define the ending of their stories. As the months passed, the house felt different. Not emptier. Clearer. I slept better. I breathed deeper. The calm Marcus used to claim as his own returned to me, this time earned, not borrowed. One evening, as I watched the sunset through my kitchen window, the sky bloomed orange and purple. For a moment, it reminded me of that wallpaper. Then the feeling passed. Because that sunset was mine now. Unshared. Uncopied. Real. The weeks after Marcus moved out were quieter than I expected. Not the hollow kind of quiet people warn you about, the kind that echoes and makes you feel abandoned, but a different silence. One that felt intentional. Like a room after a deep cleaning, when the air smells faintly of soap and everything is finally where it belongs. Eli adjusted faster than I did. Children have a way of accepting truth when it's given to them without poison. I didn't tell him everything. He didn't need the weight of adult failures on his small shoulders. What he knew was this: his father wouldn't be living with us for a while, and none of it was his fault. That mattered. Marcus called often at first. Sometimes to talk to Eli. Sometimes to check in. Sometimes just to hear my voice. I kept my boundaries firm and polite. No yelling. No late-night conversations soaked in regret. I spoke to him the way you speak to someone who has crossed a line and can't uncross it, civil, careful, distant. One night, after Eli had gone to bed, Marcus asked quietly, "Do you hate me?" I held the phone away from my ear for a moment, staring at the darkened kitchen, the hum of the refrigerator steady and reliable. "I don't hate you," I said finally. "But I don't trust you. And that matters more." He didn't argue. He knew. Lena and I met once more, a few months later. Not to discuss Marcus. To close the door. We sat on a park bench while kids ran past us, their laughter sharp and careless. The leaves had started to turn, gold bleeding into red, the season reminding us that endings can be beautiful without being painless. I finalized the annulment, Lena said. It's done. I nodded. I filed for divorce last week. She exhaled, long and slow. I used to wonder if I'd ever feel normal again. Do you? I asked. She smiled faintly. Not normal, but honest. That word lingered between us. Honest. That was the real loss, I realized, not the marriage, not even the man. It was the honesty I'd assumed I was living in. We hugged before we left. Not tightly, not desperately, just enough. The public consequences for Marcus continued quietly. No dramatic courtroom scenes. No newspaper articles. Just a steady unraveling. Friends stopped inviting him places. His promotion disappeared. Conversations ended sooner than they used to. People listened differently when he spoke, less open, more guarded. That kind of consequence isn't loud, but it's permanent. One afternoon, while I was folding laundry, I found one of Marcus's old shirts tucked into the back of a drawer. Gray, soft, familiar. I held it to my chest for a moment. Then I folded it neatly and placed it in the donation bag. Healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about choosing what you carry forward. I learned things about myself in that season. That I could sit with discomfort without running from it. That calm didn't mean passive. That strength didn't have to raise its voice. I also learned something else, something harder. Marcus didn't become a different man overnight. He'd always been capable of deception. I just hadn't needed to see it before. That realization didn't break me. It freed me, because it meant I hadn't failed to keep him honest. He'd failed to be honest. There's a difference. One evening, months later, Eli and I sat on the back porch watching the sky fade into evening. June lay at our feet, her head heavy on my shoe. "Mom?" Eli asked. "Yes." "Are you okay now?" The question caught me off guard. I looked at him, really looked at him. At the boy who'd weathered more than he should have with quiet bravery. "I am," I said. "I really am." He nodded, satisfied, and went back to counting the first stars. And in that moment, I believed myself. Sometimes, I think about the woman I was before I found that phone. The woman who trusted easily. Who believed love meant safety without question. Who thought calm meant nothing would ever crack. I don't pity her. I honor her. She loved fully with the information she had. And when the truth arrived uninvited and devastating, she didn't collapse. She stood. If you're listening to this and you've ever felt your world split open by someone else's secrets, I want you to hear this clearly. You are not foolish for believing. You are not weak for staying calm. And you are not broken because someone chose deception over honesty. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is face the truth quietly and walk forward anyway. So tell me, if you had found that second phone, would you have looked inside? Would you have confronted him right away, or waited, like I did, until the truth had nowhere left to hide? Let me know in the comments. And if my story resonated with you, consider subscribing. There are more truths to be told and more healing to be shared.